All right, welcome everyone to the Paketo Working Group weekly meeting. Glad to see you all here. I'm sharing again the link to the agenda and notes. Feel free to add yourself to attend this list, please, including your affiliation. Okay. Cool. For this session, I would like to try to take notes, especially to practice the convention of putting the notes or updates as a comment for each RFC, unless you have any objection. I'd like to do it. All right, new faces. I see Jericho Pena or Jericho. I hope I'm pronouncing it well. Welcome. Would you mind briefly introducing yourself?
Hi, everyone. Yep, Jericho Pena. I work at Rapid7. I've joined a couple different calls in the past, but I'm just listening in to learn more about, the direction and maybe at the end ask some questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Sorry, could you repeat the name of your company, organization?
Rapid7. I can put it in. Oh, I see some users are doing it. That's fine.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, welcome. Glad to see you here.
Thank you.
Awesome. Okay, so let's move to the next item, review outstanding RFCs. So first one in the list is the new feature checklist proposal. The most recent update was asking to reread and close out any open conversation. So it seems like it has some approvals already, but wondering if there's any comment, any update about this specific RFC. No? Okay, so seems like it's the same request as previous week. Please reread and close out any other conversation regarding this proposal. Okay, next up, proposed to open telemetry support for Java. This one was created by Thomas Vitali. Seems like still the updates are pending, the changes are pending on him. So unless there's any other update, we will try to reach out to Thomas to see if there's any additional work on this. Okay, all right. Well, next one, the RFC to publish images through ECR. Again, if anyone from you has any question or would like to have a short intro to any of these proposals, feel free to ask that. So yeah.
So Dan had requested that we sort of lay out what kind of metrics we'd like to get from these registries and maybe add metrics as a prerequisite to new registry integrations. I left a comment agreeing with the spirit of that, but I'm not sure, especially some of the suggested metrics that would be useful, like unique users. I don't know how practical it is in practice. Like ECR only offers total poll count, which is similar to what we get from Docker Hub. And while that's better than nothing, in practice, I haven't found it that much better than nothing because you don't know whether it's like one super active pipeline pulling images all the time versus like, a meaningful increase in the number of users. And it's not something that we have a lot of ability to control. Seems like the standard across the board is less metrics than we would like, but I don't know exactly what we can do about it. So I'm curious what people think about that. I know, Dan, you had been asking a bit about this. I'm curious concretely if there's something you think that's doable that we could put in here.
I'm not really sure. I think where I'm struggling is just to understand the value to Paketo for doing this. It seems like we have to put in the effort, we have to pay for it, and we're not really getting much out of it other than slightly faster downloads in ECR. What am I missing something? Like, I was just kind of hoping maybe this would be something that could be advantageous for us since we've had that problem of understanding our user base.
Yeah, I hear you. Like, I hope it's advantageous to us, right? I wouldn't put it in here if I didn't, but it would be nice to measure how advantageous it is to us. It is unfortunate that I don't know that we have the level of granularity in data that we would need to confirm that hypothesis. Yeah.
Okay.
We could maybe do something with like a survey in the future. I guess would be the best we could do if we can't, you know, like add this kind of data to Amazon. Or we could reach out to the team and see if it's on the roadmap or something like that. I guess in my mind, the question I think maybe we should answer before merging this RFC is like, are we willing to take the bet that it will be advantageous to us without the data, or are we trying to hold off on taking that bet because we don't have data?
I feel like for me, I worry that this RFC will be one that gets merged and kind of just will languish and never get fully completed because there is no concrete like benefit to the teams to do it. So why would someone sit down and spend the time to make the changes?
Yeah, I guess I was feeling sort of the opposite in that the cost is pretty low, like when you net it out, like compared to what infrastructure costs, you know, for a project where you have to like spin up many instances of Kates to test things out. Like even a high spend for us is like pretty low in the constellation of infrastructure spending within the CFF, which is who would be paying for this. It's like a drop in the CFF's bucket. And then because we sort of share tasks and tooling for publishing images, I'm hoping we could sort of roll it out without changing many registries. So if it like doesn't cost much from a dollar perspective, and hopefully wouldn't be that much work, and there's a potential benefit in people requesting it, I can reach out to the Amazon folks and try to get them to comment here with their perspective, because I think a lot of those conversations have been more like back channel and Slack and stuff like that. Maybe be nice to like bring some of that into the issue so we can get a temperature check on the folks who want it.
Yeah, and even if it is something that just gets another company invested in Paketo, like that's a win to me as well. But they haven't even joined the conversation, so it's not even clear that that this is gonna function in attracting more contribution to the project as well. I guess my concern is that this is also opens the floodgates, and I know that as soon as this gets approved, there's going to be at least one other one that's going to request adding it as well, and possibly two more. So that's where to me the work and cost starts to go up.
That's reasonable. Let's leave this here and we'll take an action item to try to get some of those voices into this conversation.
Well, I'm certainly going to start working on one for IBM Container Registry as soon as this one's approved. I do have customers that are looking for Paketo to be out on ICR. That'll be my motivation.
I think for each of these, like, we probably wouldn't do it for anyone paying product customers out of our pocket, right? But I do think there's value in sort of like controlling our own brand reputation and distribution mechanism on these popular things. So I prefer us doing it to each product that wants to use it, doing it themselves, even if it does cost the foundation a little bit of money, so long as the foundation is happy to spend the money. That's sort of how I think about it overall. Like,
Kevin,
yeah.
I don't want to put you on the spot, Kevin, but could you explain a little bit in terms of for IBM, like what does that mean to the customers? Like what is the advantage to having it in that repository?
Well, we have customers that are more trustful to pulling things from IBM's repository than from other repositories. So that's mainly the reason. We have customers that want everything done within IBM.
Gotcha. So there's like a trust and vetting kind of, if it's there.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, exactly.
I think the other big one is when you're in these Kate-based platforms in the major cloud providers, you can get sort of like magic authentication. So you wouldn't have to like explicitly add credentials in order to prevent Docker Hub rate limiting in this case. Like, yes, it's public, so you don't need permission to read, but a lot of registries, you do need to at least identify yourself, even though there's no auth problem. And folks that work entirely within a cloud provider ecosystem often like to use built-in mechanisms for authentication there. It's like, oh, if I spun up this instance also within the cloud provider, like everything just works and I never enter registry credentials. So it'd be nice if we could work within that those ecosystems.
Okay. Thank you all. Any other comment about this proposal? No? Right. Cool. Next one, add an APM tooling team and 8 new APM Buildpacks. So I see several approvals, 5 to be precise. So is there any other?
I think we're good to go on this. We have the 3 steering committee members, which I think is what this one needs. So I will go ahead and merge this.
Great. Thank you, then. Okay, next up, the web servers, sorry, re-architecture.
I think this has all required approvals.
Yeah, the only question, I think, I'm not sure if we had resolved this or not, but there's a concern mentioned about the limit for like the layer limit for Docker. Is that still would that still be a concern were we to go with this approach?
Has anyone looked to see where we're at in terms of layer counts on the builders?
I've not personally. I mean, I guess in general, what would be the kind of recourse, like extrapolating this out, like if we continue to add build packs to the builder, like, and we do hit that limit, what is there any recourse at that point?
I
think in
think
that-
we
go ahead.
need solutions for the layer limit, but I wouldn't want to tie them to this RFC per se,
Cool.
because I think, we're getting to a point where every new thing we add, like you could say it for the APM tool and you could say it for anything, is a layer
Right.
limit problem. And I wouldn't want to take any one of those good ideas and tie it to the layer limit, but I do think there's sort of an urgent need to address the layer limit issue in the near future. And at some point, even if we approve these RFCs, it'll block implementation because we can't put any more build packs on the image.
Got you. I just remembered someone bringing that up when we were discussing this before, but I agree. Doesn't seem like something we should tie to this specifically. So all good to me.
Yeah, it might be just nice to know where we're at to know if this will be a problem. Yeah, I certainly don't want to say like we have to fix that to approve this, but like Emily said, we're not going to get really far on this either if we are at that layer limit, or very close to it.
I haven't looked up the exact number of layers recently. It wouldn't take too long to do, but I know we're close because sometimes when people use like a build pack flag or something with one of our builders, they hit the layer limit because it's sort of ephemerally generating an image that's too many layers, which means that, if you're taking our builder, adding a handful of build packs and you hit the limit, clearly we're not far off.
Folks that are doing stuff like that, it's relatively straightforward to just go and use one of the build pack list builders. I mean, you're already adding builders to the builder anyway, so you might as well just start from like whatever the scratch builder is.
Yeah, I bring it up less from a concern about those use cases, although we probably need maybe some documentation or guidance because people don't really understand what's happening in that situation. But just to say that it's a piece of data that says we're pretty close.
And since it's also relevant with the APM tools build packs, the implementation for that for now is probably going to be blocked on this as well. And we'll probably just get those over, but then people will have to, for the time being, individually add those on with dash B. Because I don't think we could add them into there's like 9 new build packs. I don't think we can add that many right now.
Okay. Any other comment about this proposal? Okay. Next up, the RFC to include leaves to tiny that are needed for Node. Or he has some recent comments. Anything else you would like to discuss about this?
So I left a comment on this just a bit ago. Basically, the gist of it was it seems like users might want more stacks or builders, for that matter, that are like more specific to languages, and that could benefit users in different, language ecosystems. But that there's already, from where I can see, on builders and stacks, like a significant automation burden, like automation resource burden, to maintaining the stacks and builders that we already have for Bionic and Jamie. So I don't know if it's necessarily feasible to sort of sign on to maintaining a bunch more stacks and builders. but maybe there's a way that we can like help users do this themselves with like some support from the core team, but without relying on the Paketo Buildpacks like compute resources and sharing time. This kind of feels related to what we were just talking about around like reaching the layer limit for the builder as well. Like I think we're sort of arriving at the point now where like it's not super clear to me that the builder and stack offerings that we have like really make sense for people's like production use cases once they're like off the ground with Buildpacks, but it sounds like a lot of users are using them or wanting our offerings to meet those needs. So I don't know. I feel like we need to figure out where to go from here on this front. Because right now our offerings are pretty generic.
Yeah, I don't, this is like a much bigger question than just what's in this RFC. But in a world with language specific builders, sort of imagine it like instead rather than in addition to what we've done with the huge images in the past. And then probably maintenance of those things would fall to the language families. It'd be less of a everything gets automated together in one place and more it's like a packaging of the composite build pack with different stacks and different configurations. And then it sort of be like tooling is shared, but releasing, maintaining the builders is per language family. But I think that's like a big enough change. So we probably want to do some investigation about, you know, to what extent does that impact people negatively? I could see the downsides being like a day one downside. Now you have to pick a build pack rather than pick a builder on day one. I don't know if that's a huge downside. And the other downside could be platforms that just like have a default builder and expect it to work and don't have a lot of easy ways for those users to swap the builder. It could be like a bigger day one problem on platforms other than Pack. But I'm just throwing it out here because if people really want, you know, if everyone is getting really excited about minimal images, the best possible user experience, I think, would be a minimal stack for each language family. So no one has to take a dependency that they don't need, and everyone has access to a small image that is as small as it could be. I think that's sort of like the ideal user experience. You could do it with extensions, but then there's a performance cost and you can't rebase. So maybe the maintenance of it makes it a non-starter, but I think like as an end user might be the ideal.
Okay, great. Any other comment? No. All right. Next one, adds graceful stack upgrades RFC. It's a pretty recent one. It already has some reviews and approvals.
Yeah, I think it's mostly because this one is not very controversial. The ask here mostly is that language family maintainers take a look at their build packs and make sure that they handle a modification to the stack ID between different builds of their build pack. So for most build packs, there shouldn't be an issue here at all. Usually for something like a build pack that installs a dependency, those dependencies are mapped back onto stacks they run on. So if the stack changes and results in a different dependency needing to be installed, then like the layer that was previously there from the prior run would be replaced with a new layer that's compatible with the new stack that it's being targeted. Additionally, like build packs that tend to do stuff like just make metadata configuration changes, like add, like, I don't know, environment variables or set process types. Those things tend to not be layer specific, and so those will likely not have issues. The ones that maybe are worth looking into are like package manager or build process Buildpacks. They're the ones that, install a bunch of node executables using like node JIP that might be, dynamically linked to some C code that's coming from the operating system. And in those cases, maintainers should make a decision about what the behavior should be when their stack ID changes out from under them. So this is mostly just saying like explicitly, all the language maintainers should look at their build packs and make a determination as to whether or not some change needs to take place in order to support stack ID being changed.
Okay, thank you, Ryan. Any other comment about this proposal? No? Okay. Next one. Pretty new one. Update dependency RFC links. Okay.
This is an RFC. We just merged in all the dependency management RFCs. And as a result, I was updating some of the links because we fixed the numbering. And this is just to fix the links in the actual RFCs.
Gotcha. Thank you. Okay, seems like that's it in terms of RFCs. Any other comment? Any other comment about proposals? No? All right, next item was updates. Is there any update about the, or from the CNV project for Cloud Native Buildpacks upstream project? Any question in that regard? No. Okay. Well, next one, project update, Python build pack is lagging Jammy base and full build. Awesome.
Yep. If you have been wanting to use Python on Jammy Jellyfish, Python 2.0.0 is live on both Jammy base and Jammy full.
Great. Awesome. Thank you, Forrest, for sharing. All right, great. Is there any other question, any other topic you'd like to discuss here, to share here with the community?
I have something if nobody has anything else.
Yeah, please go ahead.
So I was just looking through the documentation on how to create a build pack using Packet. And I noticed that there's like Packet and then Packet V2. Is that what we're supposed to be using if we're actually going to be using some of this tooling? Is that the recommended approach?
So V2 is definitely the latest. It's the one we support. The stuff that's just under Packet is no longer supported. So I would definitely, if you were starting something from scratch, I definitely wouldn't use any of that.
Okay, that's good. I mean, it was helpful, I think, for learning. But then when I was looking at it, your actual build pack source code, I was like, okay, this is exactly the same. Okay, that's fine. I can go and kind of do a V2 version. I guess along those lines, is there a plan to update the doc to, refer to V2, or is that, I mean, like, I don't know if many people are actually going through and doing that.
Just to be clear, the docs you're talking about, these are like the how to create a build pack docs on Paketo.io.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. I think that's if they're still referencing the old packet, then that's an oversight on our part. We should have updated those quite a while ago. If you wouldn't mind filing an issue, or I can point you at the location where you could file an issue, that would be really helpful.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, yep, if you give me a link or something, that would be great. Happy to help. I actually found a typo, and then I was going to do a pull request or whatever we're doing. And then I realized this is not even the latest and greatest anyway, so it's probably not even relevant. Okay. All right. Yep, I will do that.
Cool.
And then I had another question. So I'm kind of working on my own stack in Amazon Linux 2 stack, and I'm like looking at Python and trying to figure out how to get dependencies. And I see you guys have a dependency server where you're uploading files and then pulling those down, like tar files or whatever. And then I was thinking to myself, I'm building containers in other ways too. Like I used Buildpacks to build a multi-arch container the other day. And I was just wondering if like your thoughts on using Docker images, like pulling Docker images inside of a Buildpack, like maybe with a Go Moby client or Docker client or whatever. And then like if you're doing that from a Buildpack, then anytime you do a pull, you'd always be pulling from the right architecture regardless, because it would say, you know, I'm on ARM64, I'm pulling that dependency. Like, is there a big no-no against pulling Docker images in the build pack for actually like getting some data out of those images? Any thoughts on this?
I think if you're going to do that, you probably want to use something like Crane rather than a Moby client, because you're not always going to have access to a Docker daemon inside the container that's doing a build. But even then, as part of the security posture on CNB, we avoid giving registry credentials to the build packs themselves. So unless you're running a platform in a specific trusted configuration, like one of the reasons the build takes place in stages, and those stages can be in different containers, is so that you can provide credentials to like the CMB lifecycle without providing your registry credentials to build packs themselves. And like maybe you're working in a situation where you know exactly what sets of build packs you're using and you trust them enough. And to some extent, you know, if a build pack is building your production image, you do need to trust it to a certain extent, but just sort of like limiting the blast radius of, oh, someone pulled in an untrustworthy build pack. Like, what did it have access to? Keeping registry credentials away from the build packs in general sort of hardens the system a bit, so that if there was a vulnerable build pack, it doesn't have access to all of your images.
Right. Yeah. I mean, your dependency server, isn't that open to everybody? Like anyone can pull dependencies. Isn't that how it works?
Yes, it's public. Like it's just, you know, S3 public buckets where people can pull tarballs.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I was just thinking like public images with like, you know, some file contents, and that would be it. But I'm basically what I'm trying to avoid doing is running a server to you know, host these dependency files, you know, if I can just upload a bunch of images. So I guess in theory, there's no reason why I couldn't do this, or is this going against the spirit of this whole ecosystem?
I don't think it's going against.
I'm doing something fundamentally that is bad. Sorry, go ahead.
I don't think it's going against the spirit. In fact, I think if anything, most things are converging to like just shove everything into the container registry. And so I think ultimately, you know, in the long run, what you're describing likely would be like a very likely outcome of how this type of thing would be structured. Today, there isn't anything specifically preventing you other than like how the platform you're trying to run build packs is configured in terms of like security and permissions and what you have access to. So like as long as you can say like pull from the public image registry, then like there isn't anything innate or inherent to Buildpacks that would prevent you from doing that. And I don't really think you're going against the grain of the project if you did something like that.
Okay, cool.
It is an interesting idea now that I feel like I'm understanding your question better, rather than like designing an API for figuring out the right blob for the platform. It's like reusing the registry API and its platform features, multi-arch images.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, you pull once the same code every time, and assuming you design it that way, then the scripts that are using the code do whatever they do on every platform the same way.
Yeah. Have you taken a look at the new dependency management RFCs? We recently approved a bunch of changes in the project for how we do dependency management that's taking a lot of that responsibility for like mapping different artifacts, like the correct addresses depending on like OS and stack and stuff like that, and sort of like putting it all into Buildpack TOML, but in a way that's using GitHub Actions to generate this, relying less on the dependency server, which is going to just be a dumber blob store.
Yeah,
I don't know if I
mean,
did all that justice. Sophie's the expert on this change and could probably help you, but we just approved a bunch of RCs you could read through.
yeah, that would be helpful. I mean, like, I'm still honestly trying to figure out how it all works, like postal and looking at your code. So working my way backwards here.
At the end of the day, the build packs themselves are just downloading a tarball into the container. There's no like special magic or like implicit coupling between the dep server and the build pack itself. It just happens to be, we host this stuff using this thing called dep server. You could literally host a tarball anywhere you want that's reachable on the internet and use the same code to download it. You just change that URL in the metadata. So there isn't, anything special about dep server. It's just how we happen to do the, hosting of our particular dependencies.
Cool. Okay. And I guess the last question I have is, I think I probably have asked this in the chat, but do you guys do anything special for the actual Python dependencies on your dep server? I mean, like, are you just compiling, putting those compiled files there, or are you like including OpenSSL? Like, the reason I'm asking is I'm trying to do this for Amazon Linux, and it's not as straightforward as I would like. I'm just wondering, like, if you had to do some special stuff. I couldn't really figure out what you were doing in the dep server. I have many tabs open, and maybe I just haven't looked at the right source code yet, but I haven't found like you're downloading from python.org or tarball and then compiling and configuring or whatever. But any kind of like suggestions or pointers that anyone can point me to, that would be helpful.
Yeah, we are compiling the Python dependencies from source. The dep server only supports building on Bionic. And so in order to get our Python dependencies for Jammy, we had to recreate that in GitHub Actions. And so I'll link you to the actual, basically just a bash script that does that compilation for Jammy. It's not super complicated, but it is building from scratch with some flags. I won't try to describe it with words. I'll just link it to you.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I wasn't sure what flags to use, and I was like, okay, I'm kind of just trying trial and error, but yeah, that would be really helpful. Cool. Yeah, I'm on the CNCF Slack if you want to find me there. Oh, I see you're putting it right here. Great. Cool. All right, I'll copy all these links before this shuts down.
And should we reach out to keep the interaction going?
Yeah. You mean like asking for help?
Yeah, one of our focuses for the year is on trying to make tooling and stuff easier for Buildpack authors to use. So getting feedback about those particular things, about issues you run into or stuff that's, you know, missing documentation or that could be improved is really helpful. It's something we're trying to make a lot better for folks like yourself.
Yeah, I will say that the website kind of like packet walkthrough, building how to create a build pack with the packet tooling, it was really helpful. But granted, I've read a lot of stuff, and I actually had to learn Go before I went and did all that stuff. It may be helpful to, you lose all the tooling, but like have a shell script version where people are like, I get it, even if I don't get Go. And then if you want to make your life really easy, go use this, because, you know, once you start doing a lot of stuff in shell, it's painful. But anyways, I think that the actual example is really good. And I was able to use it to make my own build pack. So I think you get a lot of kudos there.
Buildpacks.io website does have a build pack tutorial written in Bash. I would say that one probably goes too far the other direction, and then it's not doing useful enough things to really give you a sense of how you would want to design your build pack and what all things are possible. It's like really basic, but you could look at that one too.
Okay, yeah. I will check that out. Okay, let me copy more links. Thank you. I think that's it for me.
Awesome.
I've asked a lot of questions. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you, Jericho. And thank you all for providing answers. We hope this is useful for you, Jericho. And yeah, we invite you to please open an issue with anything you find missing in the docs. Anything you would like to see there is really helpful for us. Thank you. Okay. Well, anything else? And yeah, please join Paketo's lag. We'll put the link just right here real quick. There we go. Here's the link. We invite you to join. Paketo has its own Slack workspace with several channels there. So we hope to see you there also, Jericho.
Yes,
Cool.
actually, one quick question. You guys know that Slack changed their free tier to like 90 days only? Is everybody aware of that?
Is Slack free tier, you say?
Yeah, like it used to be that you could go back 10,000 messages. I don't know. Are you guys on a free tier for Slack, or do you actually pay for like an actual plan?
The Linux Foundation pays like the enterprise account,
Okay,
whatever
cool.
stuff for us. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I was just gonna say you're gonna lose your history if it hasn't already happened. Cool.
Awesome. Is there any other question or discussion topic right now? Otherwise, thank you all for joining. It was a great session and hope to see you next week. Goodbye.
Yeah.